Velnaris stepped off the transport shuttle and felt his legs tremble. This was normal for him. His species, the Chilan, were known throughout the galaxy for many things. They were excellent traders. They built beautiful cities. They created art that made other species weep with joy, but they were not known for bravery. The space station stretched out before him like a small city floating in the darkness. Harmony's Edge, they called it. A neutral place where species from across the galaxy came to talk instead of fight. Velnaris had been chosen to represent his people in negotiations with the Dreth Empire. The Dreth wanted kill and trade routes. They had made threats. Now both sides would sit and find a peaceful solution. At least that was the plan. Welcome to Harmony's Edge. The voice came from a human standing near the docking port. Velnaris had seen humans before, but only in videos and records. They were shorter than him but built thicker. More muscle. This one wore a simple gray suit and smiled warmly. I'm Taman. I'll be your liaison during the negotiations. Velnaris clicked his mandibles together in greeting. Thank you. I am Velnaris of the Keelan Collective. I hope our stay here will be brief and successful. I'm sure it will be. Taman gestured toward a corridor. Let me show you to your quarters. We have another guest arriving shortly. Ji Woo from our security division. She'll be assigned to you during your stay. Security? Velnaris felt his anxiety spike. Is there danger? No more than usual. Taimin said it so casually that Velnaris wasn't sure if he should feel better or worse. Standard protocol. Every diplomat gets a security escort, just to make sure everyone stays safe and comfortable. They walked through the station's main corridor. Other species moved past them. Tall saurans with their reptilian features, floating hexoids with their 6 arms, even a few crystalline lithians that chimed as they walked. The station hummed with the sound of 100 different languages being translated through universal communicators. The negotiations start tomorrow, Taman explained. The Dreth delegation arrived this morning. They're settling into their section of the station. Velnaris shuddered. The Dreth were warriors. Their entire culture revolved around strength and conquest. They had fought a dozen wars in the last century alone. The Keelan had fought none. How was he supposed to negotiate with beings who respected only power? You seem nervous, Taman observed. My people are not warriors, Velnaris admitted. The Dreth are. I fear they will not respect our position. Then make them respect it. Taman smiled. You don't need to be a warrior to be strong. You just need to know what you won't compromise on. Before Velnaris could respond, a woman in black tactical gear approached them. She was shorter than Taman, with dark hair pulled back in a tight tail. Various weapons hung from her belt like casual accessories. She walked with an easy confidence that made Velnaris uncomfortable. This is Ji Woo, Taman said. Ji Woo, meet Velnaris. He's our Keelan diplomat. Nice to meet you. Ji Woo extended her hand. Velnaris touched it briefly with his own 3-fingered appendage. Her grip was firm but not crushing. Don't worry about the hardware. She patted one of her weapons. Just insurance. Probably won't need any of it. Probably, Velnaris echoed. Well, you never know. Ji Woo grinned. But that's what I'm here for. To make sure you don't have to worry about the probably. They reached Velnaris's quarters. A comfortable suite with a sleeping area, workspace, and a window showing the endless stars. Taman left him to settle in, but Ji Woo remained outside his door. Security, she said. Just in case. Velnaris tried to rest, but his mind raced. He reviewed his notes on Dreth culture, studied their demands, and prepared counteroffers. Hours passed. Eventually, hunger drove him to the station's dining area. The cafeteria was crowded. Different species ate different foods at different tables. Velnaris found a quiet corner and ordered a nutrient paste suitable for Keelan digestion. As he ate, he watched the other beings around him. That's when he noticed something odd. There was a group of humans at one table, maybe 6 or 7 of them. They laughed and talked loudly. Normal enough, but they all wore military uniforms and they all carried weapons. Yet they seemed completely relaxed. They joked and smiled as if they were at a festival, not a military station. Ji Woo appeared beside him. Mind if I sit? Please. Velnaris gestured to the seat across from him. She set down a tray of food that smelled strange to Velnaris's senses. You keep staring at my colleagues. Something wrong? No, Velnaris struggled to explain. They seem very calm. For soldiers, why wouldn't they be calm? We are on a station with the Dreth Empire. Warriors who have conquered dozens of worlds. Doesn't that concern you? Jiwoo took a bite of her food and chewed thoughtfully. Not really. The Dreth are tough, sure, but they bleed like everything else. The casual way she said it made Velnaris's antenna quiver. There was no bravado in her voice. No anger or fear. Just a simple statement of fact. Have you fought them before? He asked. Not personally, but humans have tangled with them a few times. We usually come out okay. She took a drink. The trick with warrior cultures is that they expect everyone else to be afraid. When you're not, it confuses them. But I am afraid, Velnaris admitted. That's healthy. Fear keeps you alert. Jiwoo smiled. The difference is what you do with it. You can let it freeze you or you can use it to stay sharp. Before Velnaris could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the walls. The universal communicator in his ear crackled to life. Attention all station personnel. Unknown vessels approaching. Multiple signatures. Military configuration. All diplomats report to secure locations immediately. The cafeteria erupted in panic. Species scattered in every direction. Velnaris stood frozen, his legs refusing to move. This was it. The Dreth had betrayed them. They were attacking. He felt a hand on his arm. Jiwoo stood beside him, completely calm despite the chaos. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe. We need to evacuate. Velnaris's voice came out as a chittering squeak. Not yet. First we figure out what's happening. Jiwoo guided him toward the corridor, her hand never leaving her weapon. Stay close to me. They hurried through the station. Other security personnel moved with purpose, directing frightened diplomats toward shelters. Velnaris saw Taemin speaking rapidly into a communicator, his face serious but not panicked. Commander Rixtal, a large Sauran who ran the station, appeared on every screen. The approaching vessels have been identified as Dreth warships. They are not responding to hails. All combat personnel to defensive positions. All non-essential personnel to emergency shelters. Velnaris felt his hearts hammering. Multiple hearts. Kelon physiology required two to pump blood through their tall frames. Right now both were racing. They're surrounding us, someone shouted. Jiwoo pulled Velnaris into a side corridor. Through a window he could see them. Dark shapes against the stars. Dozens of Dreth warships forming a sphere around the station. They were trapped. We have to surrender, Velnaris whispered. We have to— No. Taemin's voice came from behind them. He had followed them into the corridor. His face was still calm, but his eyes were hard now. Focused. We don't surrender. But we're outnumbered. They'll destroy the station. Maybe, Taemin looked at Jiwoo. Get him to the secure room with the other diplomats. Then report to your squad. Got it. Jiwoo nodded. Wait. Velnaris grabbed Taemin's arm. What are you going to do? Taemin met his eyes. In that moment, Velnaris saw something that made his blood run cold. Not fear, not anger. Just a quiet, absolute determination. We're going to handle it, Taemin said simply. The way he said those words, so calm, so certain, terrified Velnaris more than the Dreth warships ever could. The secure room was crowded with frightened diplomats. 20 different species pressed together, all speaking at once in dozens of languages. The universal translators struggled to keep up with the chaos. Velnaris found a corner and tried to make himself small. Through the reinforced window he could see Dreth ships floating in the darkness like predators circling prey. They were massive vessels covered in weapons and armor. Each one could probably destroy the station alone. And there were at least 30 of them. A voice boomed over the station's communication system. It was harsh and growling, the sound of something that enjoyed causing pain. Attention Harmony's Edge. This is Commander Krelvas of the Dreth Empire. You have something we want. Surrender all diplomats to us for processing and we will let the rest of you live. Processing. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. Execution. Public execution, probably. The Dreth like to make examples. We should surrender. A Lithian diplomat chimed, their crystalline body vibrating with fear. If we give them what they want, they'll kill us anyway, another voice interrupted. It was a hexoid engineer named Wall, who Velnaris had spoken with earlier. The Dreth don't let witnesses live. They want us to surrender so they can take everyone without a fight. Then what do we do? Velnaris asked. We wait, Jiwoo said from her position by the door. She stood with 3 other human security officers, all of them checking their weapons with practiced efficiency. The commander is working on a response. A response? Velnaris couldn't believe what he was hearing. There are 30 warships out there. What kind of response can... The lights flickered. A massive impact shook the station. Everyone in the room screamed or made their species equivalent of a scream. Velnaris clutched at the wall to keep from falling. They're firing on the station, Jiwoo said calmly, touching her communicator. Shields are holding. Where do you need me? Velnaris couldn't hear the response, but Jiwoo nodded. She looked at her fellow guards. Minho, stay here with the diplomats. The rest of you with me. Wait, Velnaris called out. You're leaving? We need protection. Jiwoo paused at the door. Minho will protect you. We're needed at the docking bay. The Dreth are sending boarding parties. Boarding parties? Velnaris felt his legs go weak. They're coming inside. Trying to. Jiwoo smiled, and it was the scariest thing Velnaris had ever seen. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. Don't worry. We'll greet them properly. She left with the other guards. Minho remained by the door, a large rifle in his hands. He looked young for a human, but his eyes were old. Watchful, another impact. Closer this time. The lights went out completely for a moment before emergency power kicked in. Red light bathed everything, making the secure room feel like the inside of a dying heart. Velnaris moved to the window. He could see small shapes detaching from the Dreth ships. Boarding pods, dozens of them, shooting toward the station like bullets. Each one probably carried 10 or 15 Dreth warriors. He did the math in his head and felt sick. The station's automated defenses fired, destroying some pods. But there were too many. They slammed into the hull in different sections, and Velnaris knew that right now, Dreth warriors were cutting through metal and pouring into the corridors. How many humans are on this station? He asked Minho. 23, Minho replied without taking his eyes off the door. 23? Velnaris couldn't believe it. There are over 200 beings on this station. How can 23 humans possibly... Quality over quantity, Minho said simply. Velnaris turned back to the window. He activated his communicator, switching to the security channel. He knew he shouldn't, but he had to see what was happening. The communicator showed him feeds from cameras throughout the station. In the main docking bay, he saw the first Dreth breach. They poured through a hole they'd cut in the wall. Massive warriors in heavy armor, each one carrying weapons that looked like they could cut a person in half. There were at least 40 of them, roaring and charging forward. Waiting for them were 15 humans in military gear, 15 against 40. Velnaris watched, waiting for the humans to retreat, to fall back, to show some sign of fear. Instead, they opened fire with a precision that shocked him. The Dreth charged in a mass, relying on their numbers and armor. The humans fought like a single organism, each one covering another, their shots hitting weak points in Dreth armor with surgical accuracy. A human voice came over the communicator. It was calm, almost bored. Contact, 40+ hostiles, Section 7. We're engaged. That was Hyunwoo, the Marine lieutenant in charge of station defense. Velnaris had met him briefly. The man had shaken his hand and welcomed him warmly. Now that same man was calmly reporting contact as if he was reading a shopping list. Copy that. Commander Rickstall's voice responded. Fall back to Checkpoint Alpha if you need to. Negative, Hyunwoo replied. Velnaris could hear weapons fire in the background. We're holding here. They're funneling nice and tight. Velnaris watched the camera feed. The Dreth were pressing forward, but they weren't gaining ground. Bodies piled up at the breach point. The humans had positioned themselves perfectly, creating a killing zone that the Dreth had to push through, and the Dreth, confident in their warrior culture, kept pushing. Then something happened that Velnaris would never forget. One of the humans ran out of ammunition. Instead of retreating, she drew a knife, just a simple blade, and charged into 3 Dreth warriors. The camera couldn't capture all the details, but Velnaris saw her move between them like water, the knife flashing. All 3 Dreth went down. That was Sora, the combat pilot. She retrieved a Dreth weapon from one of the fallen warriors and kept fighting. Crazy pilot, Hyunwoo's voice said. But Velnaris could hear the smile in it. Someone cover Sora before she tries to fight the whole boarding party by herself. I'm fine. Sora's voice came back, slightly breathless. These guys are slower than they look. Velnaris switched camera feeds. Another boarding pod had breached near the station's reactor section. 20 Dreth warriors flooded into a narrow corridor. 3 humans were there, already in position behind barriers they'd erected. The Dreth opened fire. Energy bolts filled the corridor. The humans didn't panic. They waited. When the Dreth stopped to reload, the humans returned fire with devastating accuracy. 6 Dreth dropped in seconds. The remaining Dreth charged forward. One of the humans tossed something small. A grenade, Velnaris realized, and all 3 humans ducked behind their barriers. The explosion was contained in the corridor, amplified by the walls. When the smoke cleared, the Dreth were gone. Reactor section secure, a female human voice reported. That was Da'un, the medic. Velnaris had seen her in the cafeteria earlier, laughing with friends. Now she was calmly reporting kills like she was checking off tasks on a list. Another impact rocked the station. This one was different. Not weapons fire, but another boarding pod. It had hit the exterior wall of a section near the diplomatic quarters. Too close. We have breach in Section 12, Commander Rixtal announced. All available security to Section 12. I'm closest, Jiwoo's voice came over the communicator. 2 minutes out. Velnaris's hand shook as he watched another camera feed. The boarding pod had disgorged its cargo, 16 Dreth warriors. They spread out quickly, professional and deadly. They were heading toward the secure room where the diplomats were hiding. They're coming here, Velnaris whispered. Minho adjusted his grip on his rifle. I know. There are too many. We need to run. No. Minho's voice was flat. This is a choke point. This door is the only way in. If we run, they'll catch us in the corridors where they have room to spread out. Here I have the advantage that you're one person. I'm one human, Minho corrected. There's a difference. The Dreth reached the corridor outside the secure room. Velnaris could hear them now, their heavy footsteps like thunder. Their harsh voices barking commands to each other. The other diplomats in the room had gone silent, frozen in terror. The door was reinforced, but it wouldn't hold long against Dreth weapons. Already, Velnaris could see scorch marks appearing on the metal as they began cutting through. Minho positioned himself directly in front of the door, his rifle aimed and steady. When I tell you to, everyone get down on the floor and stay down. Don't move, don't look up, don't do anything. Understand? No one responded. They were too scared to speak, understand? Minho repeated louder this time. A chorus of affirmative sounds came from around the room. The door glowed red. It was nearly through. Velnaris could see the Dreth beyond, their massive forms shadowy through the superheated metal. Now, Minho said quietly. Get down, everyone dropped. Velnaris pressed himself to the floor, his body shaking so badly he thought he might come apart. The door exploded inward. Dreth warriors rushed through the gap, weapons ready. Minho opened fire. Velnaris had never heard anything so loud in his life. Velnaris kept his face pressed to the floor, but he couldn't help seeing. The first 3 Dreth through the door fell immediately, Minho's shots hitting them with impossible precision. The next wave tried to push through over their bodies, and Minho kept firing. His movements were economical, practiced. He wasn't spraying bullets wildly. Each shot had a purpose, but there were too many. Even as Dreth fell, more pushed through. They would overwhelm him through numbers alone. Then Jiwoo arrived. She came from a side corridor that Velnaris hadn't even noticed, moving fast and low. She threw something that exploded among the Dreth with a flash and a bang that left Velnaris's ears ringing. The Dreth staggered, disoriented. Jiwoo and Minho used that moment to pour fire into them. When the shooting stopped, Velnaris slowly lifted his head. 16 Dreth warriors lay dead or dying in the corridor. Not a single diplomat had been hurt. Minho was reloading his rifle with calm efficiency. Jiwoo was checking the fallen Dreth, making sure none of them would get back up. Everyone okay in here? Jiwoo asked the room. Velnaris tried to speak but couldn't. His voice wouldn't work. Around him, other diplomats were crying or praying in their various languages. They were alive, but they would never forget this moment. Good, Jiwoo said, taking their silence as confirmation.
Stay put.
We're securing the corridors. She and Minho moved out, leaving the diplomats alone with the bodies. Velnaris stared at the fallen Dreth. These were warriors from a species known throughout the galaxy for their combat prowess. They trained their entire lives for battle, and 2 humans had stopped 16 of them like it was a routine task. I need to understand, Velnaris said to no one in particular. I need to understand what they are. Wall, the hexoid engineer, pulled himself up with 4 of his 6 arms. He was shaking, but he managed to speak. I've worked with humans for 3 years. On cargo ships, mostly. I've seen them do things that should be impossible. Tell me, Velnaris said. He needed to know. needed to understand the beings who were fighting for his life. They come from a death world, Wall explained. Earth. Most species evolve on planets where life is easy. Plenty of food, mild weather, few predators. Earth is different. It has extreme weather, massive storms, freezing cold, burning heat. It has predators everywhere. The gravity is twice what Chilan are comfortable with. The air is full of things that can make you sick. The planet itself is trying to kill you with earthquakes and volcanoes. And humans evolved there? Velnaris tried to imagine it. Not just evolved. Thrived. Wall gestured with two arms while the others steadied himself against the wall. They're persistence hunters. That means their prey can run faster, jump higher, hide better. But humans just keep coming. They track you for days. They never stop. They never give up. Eventually, you collapse from exhaustion and they're still coming. Velnaris felt something cold settle in his chest. That's what they're doing now. To the Dreth. Exactly. Wall pointed at a screen showing security feeds. Watch, Velnaris looked. The battle was still raging throughout the station. But something had changed. The Dreth weren't advancing anymore. They were trying to retreat. And the humans weren't letting them. On one feed, Hyunwoo's squad had pushed the Dreth back to their boarding pod. The Dreth were trying to escape, but the humans pursued them with relentless efficiency. When the surviving Dreth finally made it back to their pod and tried to seal it, Sora appeared with an explosive charge. She planted it on the pod's hull and ducked away. The explosion destroyed the pod's ability to detach from the station. They're trapped, Velnaris whispered. The humans trapped them on purpose. Wall said, now those Dreth can't escape and can't reinforce their friends. They're stuck in a metal box and the humans can deal with them whenever they want. On another feed, Da-Un was tending to wounded Marines. Her hands moved with steady confidence as she bandaged a man who had taken a Dreth blade to his shoulder. The man was joking with her, actually laughing while she worked. She smiled and said something back that made him laugh harder. They're laughing, Velnaris said in disbelief. They're wounded and surrounded by enemies and they're laughing. Stress response, Wall explained. Human psychology is different from ours. When we feel stress, we freeze or run. When humans feel stress, they often become more focused, sharper. Some of them even enjoy it. They have a saying, pressure makes diamonds. Velnaris watched Da-Un finish with her patient and move to the next one. She hummed quietly while she worked. Some human song that sounded peaceful despite the chaos around her. The wounded Marine she'd just treated picked up his rifle and rejoined his squad without complaint. How many humans have died? Velnaris asked. Wool checked his datapad, accessing the casualty reports. 3 wounded. None dead. 3 wounded out of 23 against hundreds of Dreth warriors? Velnaris couldn't believe it. How? Training, tactics, but mostly... Wall paused, searching for the right words. Mostly it's mindset. The Dreth are warriors. They live for battle. But humans? Humans are survivors. They don't fight for glory or honor. They fight to win, and they fight hardest when they're protecting something. Velnaris thought about Taemin's calm certainty, Jiwoo's predatory smile, Minho's absolute focus. These weren't beings who sought out violence. But when violence came to them, they met it with a controlled ferocity that made the Dreth look hesitant. The communicator crackled. All Dreth boarding parties have been neutralized or contained, Commander Rixtal announced. Station security is securing all breach points. Medical teams to sections 7 and 12. A cheer went up from the other diplomats. They were saved. The Dreth ground forces had been defeated, but Velnaris looked at the screen showing the space outside the station. 30 Dreth warships still surrounded them. The ground battle was over, but the real danger remained. What happens now? He asked Wool. Now the Dreth commander has a choice. He can try another boarding action, but he knows it will fail. He just lost most of his ground forces, so he'll either negotiate or, Velnaris prompted, or he'll destroy the station from orbit. If he can't take it, he'll make sure no one has it. As if to confirm Wool's words, Commander Krelvas's voice boomed over the communication system again. This time he sounded angry. You've made a mistake, humans. Did you think winning one small battle would matter? I have 30 warships. You have a station with minimal weapons and failing shields. Surrender now or I will reduce your station to debris. Silence fell over the secure room. Everyone waited for Commander Rixtal's response. Would he surrender? Trade the humans for everyone else's safety? It would be the logical choice. But Velnaris was learning that humans didn't always make logical choices. This is Commander Rixtal. The Sauron's voice came over the speakers. We reject your terms. If you want this station, you'll have to destroy it. And when you do, the entire galaxy will know that the Dreth Empire attacks diplomatic missions and murders ambassadors. Even your warrior culture has rules. Break them and every species will unite against you. Good, Velnaris thought. Use politics. Make Krelvas back down without more violence, but Krelvas laughed. It was an ugly sound. Rules are for the weak. No one will unite against us. They're all too afraid. Just like you're afraid right now. I'm going to enjoy watching your station burn. The communication cut off. Through the window, Velnaris saw the Dreth ships powering up their main weapons. Energy gathered at their guns like small stars being born. The station's shields wouldn't hold against that much firepower. They had maybe 15 minutes before the bombardment destroyed them all. Velnaris finally understood what terror truly meant. It wasn't the fear of dying. He'd felt that fear when the Dreth boarded. No, true terror was watching someone who didn't show fear face certain death. It was seeing Jiwoo check her weapons with steady hands. It was hearing Minho joke with another Marine over the communicator. It was watching humans prepare to die without a single one of them suggesting surrender. They're not going to run, Velnaris said quietly. No, Wool agreed. They're not. Why? Why won't they save themselves? Because we're here, Wall said simply. All of us. The diplomats, the workers, the other species. Humans have this thing they say. No one left behind. They mean it literally. They would rather die than leave us. Velnaris moved back to the window. He watched the human Marines taking defensive positions, even though defense was pointless against ship-mounted weapons. He watched Sora climbing into a small fighter craft ready to launch even though one fighter couldn't stop 30 warships. He watched them prepare to fight a battle they couldn't win, and he realized something that terrified him more than anything else. He wanted to fight with them. These strange, violent, impossible beings had awakened something in him. A desire to stand beside them, to matter, to be worth their protection. I have to do something, he said. What can you do? Wall asked gently. We're not warriors. No, Velnaris agreed. But humans aren't warriors either. They're survivors. And right now I want to survive. He left the secure room, ignoring the protests of the other diplomats. He had to find Taemin, had to know what the humans were planning. Because there had to be a plan. Humans always had a plan. Velnaris found Taemin in the station's command center. The room was chaos, officers shouting reports, screens showing damage assessments, alarms blaring warnings. But in the center of it all, Taemin stood with Commander Rixtal and several other humans studying a holographic display of the station. Velnaris. Taemin looked surprised. You should be in the secure room. I needed to see, Velnaris said. Needed to know if there was hope. Taemin and Rixtal exchanged glances. The Sauron commander spoke first. The Dreth will begin bombardment in approximately 12 minutes. Our shields will fail in less than 5 minutes under their combined firepower. We've sent distress signals, but the nearest Allied fleet is over an hour away. So we're going to die, Velnaris said flatly. Maybe. That was a human Velnaris hadn't met yet. Young Su, according to his name badge. He was the chief engineer and he looked exhausted. Or maybe we get lucky. Lucky how? Young Su pointed at the holographic display. It showed the station's reactor core, pulsing with energy deep in the station's center. I've been running the reactor hot since the attack started. Really hot. Past safety margins, way past. Right now it's generating about 3 times more power than it's designed to handle. Velnaris didn't understand. Why would you do that? Because, Young Su smiled tiredly. A reactor core generating that much power is basically a giant bomb. And we can eject the core, launch it like a missile. The implication hit Velnaris like a physical blow. You want to shoot your own reactor at the Dreth fleet. At their flagship specifically, Hyunwoo added. He had joined them from the defensive positions, his armor scorched and dented but his eyes alert. The big one right in the center of their formation. Commander Krelvace's ship. But without the reactor, Velnaris started. We die, Rixtal finished. Life support fails within hours. We'll suffocate long before help arrives. Then what's the point? Velnaris demanded. You destroy one ship but die anyway? We've already sent the distress signal, Taemin explained. And we've sent all our sensor data on the Dreth fleet. Even if we die, the Dreth lose their flagship and their commander. They'll be disorganized, weakened. When the Allied fleet arrives, they can finish what we started. You're talking about sacrificing yourselves for a tactical advantage? Velnaris felt his legs weakening again. For other people to benefit from? For you to benefit from, Jiwoo said quietly. She had appeared behind him, her armor damaged but her stance still confident. For all the diplomats. For every civilian on this station. You think we're going to let Krelvas win? Let him go on to hurt more people? Insu, the communications officer, suddenly straightened at his console. Incoming transmission. It's the human destroyer Indomitable. They received our distress call and are en route. ETA? He paused, checking his screen. 8 minutes. 8 minutes, Rikstal repeated. We'll be dead in 5. So we hold the shields for 8 minutes, Hyunwoo said simply as if it were obvious. That's impossible, Youngsu objected. The power requirements make it possible, Hyunwoo interrupted. You're a genius, right? Figure it out. Youngsu stared at him for a moment, then laughed. It was a slightly hysterical sound. You're insane. All of you are insane. He turned back to his console and started running calculations. But maybe, if we divert all power from non-essential systems, reroute life support, shut down artificial gravity in non-critical sections, we might extend the shields by 3 minutes. Still 2 minutes short. What if we launch the reactor core during the bombardment? Taemin suggested. Use the explosion as cover? The Dreth might not notice it until it's too late, and the explosion itself might disrupt their targeting. Risky, Rikstal said. If they destroy the core before it reaches the flagship, we lose our reactor and accomplish nothing. Everything's risky right now, Jiwoo pointed out. At least this risk has potential. Velnaris listened to them plan his survival with the same casual efficiency they used for everything else. They weren't panicking, they weren't crying or blaming each other. They were solving a problem the same way they might solve any other problem. I want to help, Velnaris said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. Help how? Taemin asked gently. I don't know, but I can't just hide while you fight for me. Tell me what to do. Give me a task, anything. Hyunwoo studied him for a long moment. Can you run? Yes, I'm actually quite fast. Good. We need to physically transport the reactor core to the launch bay. It's designed to be ejected automatically, but the Dreth damaged those systems when they breached Section 12, so we're doing it the old-fashioned way. We're going to carry it. Carry a reactor core? Velnaris couldn't believe what he was hearing. It's been shut down and shielded, Youngsu explained. Still weighs about 2 tons, but with 6 of us carrying it, it's manageable. The problem is the route from engineering to the launch bay passes through sections that lost atmosphere during the boarding action. We'll need to move fast. I'll do it, Velnaris said before his fear could stop him. Taemin smiled. You're sure? It's dangerous. Everything is dangerous, Velnaris said, repeating words he'd heard from the humans. At least this danger has a purpose. They assembled the team. Youngsu, Hyunwoo, Jiwoo, 2 other Marines named Kyungsu, and Dongha, and Velnaris. They suited up in emergency gear, preparing for the sections without atmosphere. Velnaris had never worn a human spacesuit before. It felt heavy and restrictive. Stay close to me, Jiwoo told him, checking his suit's seals. If something goes wrong, I'll get you out. The Dreth ships opened fire just as they reached engineering. The station shook with the impacts, lights flickering as power fluctuated. Youngsu worked quickly to disconnect the reactor core from its housing. It was a cylinder about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide, covered in cooling fins and shielding. Okay, Youngsu said. 3 on each side. Lift on my count. 1, 2, 3. They lifted together. Velnaris felt the weight immediately. His Keelan physiology wasn't built for heavy lifting. But the humans carried their share easily, and he refused to be the weak link. He held on tight and moved when they moved. They started through the station. The route took them through damaged corridors where the walls were torn and sparking, past sections where bodies still lay, Dreth warriors who had fallen during the battle, through a section where the floor had been blown apart and they had to carefully cross on maintenance beams. Another impact rocked the station. Velnaris stumbled, nearly dropping his corner of the reactor. Jiwoo caught him with one hand while maintaining her grip on the core with the other. I've got you, she said. They reached the section without atmosphere. Youngsu activated their suit systems, and they stepped into a corridor open to space. Stars shone through massive holes in the hull. The Dreth bombardment had torn the station apart here. They moved as quickly as they dared, the reactor core heavy between them. Velnaris's muscles screamed with effort. He could hear his own labored breathing inside the helmet. But he kept moving. One step, another. Shields at 30%, Insu's voice came over their communicators. 4 minutes until total failure. How much farther? Hyunwoo asked. 200 meters, Youngsu replied. They pushed harder. Velnaris felt something tear in his shoulder, but he didn't let go. Couldn't let go. These humans were carrying their share and his. The least he could do was hold on. The launch bay doors came into view. They were still closed, but Youngsu had programmed them to open when they approached. The doors split apart, revealing the launch bay beyond. They carried the reactor core inside and secured it to a launch platform. Youngsu connected cables and activated the launch sequence. 30 seconds to launch. We need to clear the bay. They ran. Velnaris's legs felt like they would collapse, but Jiwoo pulled him along. They made it through the bay doors just as they sealed behind them. Shields at 15%, Insu announced. 2 minutes to failure. Indomitable ETA 3 minutes. Launch the core, Commander Rixtal ordered. Youngsu pressed the button. Through a window, Velnaris saw the reactor core eject from the station like a bullet. It shot toward the Dreth flagship, a tiny cylinder against the massive warship. The Dreth were so focused on bombardment that they didn't notice it until too late. The reactor core hit the flagship's shields and detonated. The explosion was like a sun being born. White light filled the windows, forcing Velnaris to look away. When he could see again, the Dreth flagship was gone. Just debris and expanding gases. 2 nearby Dreth ships had been caught in the blast, their hulls cracked and venting atmosphere. The remaining Dreth ships stopped firing. For a moment, everything was silent. Then they began to retreat. Without their commander, without their flagship, the Dreth fleet fell apart. Ships scattered in different directions, fleeing into hyperspace. Indomitable arriving now, Insu said, his voice thick with emotion. A new ship appeared on the screens, human design, sleek and deadly. The destroyer Indomitable had arrived, and its captain was hailing the station. This is Captain Haewon of the Indomitable. We're reading critical life support failures. Prepare for emergency evacuation. We'll have you out in 30 minutes. Velnaris collapsed against the wall, his legs finally giving out. Jiwoo knelt beside him. The medical bay of the Indomitable was crowded but efficient. Velnaris lay on a bed designed for human physiology, his 3-fingered hand wrapped in bandages. The human medic, not Dayun but someone equally skilled, had treated the torn muscles in his shoulder with quick competence. Now he rested, watching the activity around him. In the next bed, a human marine named Dongha was being treated for burns on his arm. He was joking with another marine, talking about getting a tattoo over the scars. The other marine laughed and suggested designs. These humans had just survived a battle that should have killed them, and they were laughing about decorative scars. You're awake. Good. Captain Haewon approached his bed. She was older than the other humans he'd met, with gray streaking her dark hair, but her eyes were sharp and assessing. How are you feeling? Confused, Velnaris admitted. And sore. But alive. That's what matters. Haewon pulled up a chair. I've been reading Commander Rixtal's report. You helped carry the reactor core? I tried. The humans did most of the work. That's not what Hyunwoo said. He said you kept pace even when it was clearly causing you pain. He said you never let go. Haewon smiled. That's impressive for someone whose species isn't known for physical strength. I couldn't let them down, Velnaris said simply. They were fighting for me. For all of us. That's the human way, Haewon said. We fight hardest for those who can't fight for themselves. It's not always logical. Sometimes it costs us dearly, but it's who we are. Velnaris thought about that. Why? Why risk so much for others? Haewon was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. My grandfather used to tell me a story about Earth's history. Thousands of years ago, humans found a skeleton, an ancient human ancestor who had lived tens of thousands of years before. This ancestor had broken bones that had healed. Not just once, but multiple times throughout their life. Broken leg, broken arm, shattered ribs, all healed. I don't understand, Velnaris said. In nature, when a predator breaks a leg, it dies. It can't hunt, can't escape danger, can't survive. But this ancient human survived multiple injuries. You know why? Haewon leaned forward. Because someone took care of them. Someone brought them food. Protected them while they healed. Stayed with them. Compassion, Velnaris said. More than that. Stubbornness. Humans decided tens of thousands of years ago that we don't leave our people behind, that we take care of each other even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous. That instinct is in our bones now, literally part of who we are. Velnaris felt tears forming in his eyes. His species didn't cry exactly the same way humans did, but the emotion was the same. You didn't even know me. You barely met me, but you were willing to die for me. We were willing to die for everyone on that station, Haywan corrected gently, and we're very glad we didn't have to. Thanks to you, everyone survived. Not everyone, Velnaris said quietly. He'd learned that 3 Marines had died in the fighting. 3 humans who would never go home. No, Haywan agreed, her face somber. Not everyone. We'll honor them. Remember them. Make sure their sacrifice meant something. Over the next few days, Velnaris remained on the Indomitable as it escorted other ships to secure Harmony's Edge. The station was badly damaged but could be repaired. More importantly, the Dreth Empire had withdrawn. The loss of their flagship and commander had shocked them. They agreed to resume negotiations. Real negotiations this time, without threats. Velnaris watched the news reports from across the galaxy. The battle at Harmony's Edge had become a symbol. Other species were talking about it, debating it, learning from it. Some called the humans reckless. Others called them heroes. Everyone agreed they were dangerous to cross. On the 5th day, Velnaris was cleared to return home. But before he left, he attended a memorial service for the fallen Marines. It was held in the Indomitable's main gathering space. All the humans stood in neat rows wearing dress uniforms. Velnaris stood with them, feeling out of place but honored to be included. Captain Haywan spoke about each fallen Marine. Not just their combat record, but who they were. Their hobbies. Their dreams. The people they loved. She made them real, not just names on a casualty report. When the service ended, Jiwoo found Velnaris. She looked different in her dress uniform, less like a soldier and more like a regular person. But her eyes still held that watchful quality. You're heading home tomorrow? She asked. Yes, I need to report to my people. Tell them what happened. What will you tell them? Velnaris thought carefully. The truth. That I felt real terror for the first time standing with humans. Not terror of what they would do to me, but terror of what they would do for me. Jiwoo smiled. That's poetic. Did you practice that? A little, Velnaris admitted, and they both laughed. Will you come back? Jiwoo asked. To the station once it's repaired? I think I must, Velnaris said. The negotiations need to continue, and he paused, searching for the right words. And I need to understand you better. All of you. Your species. We're not that complicated, Jiwoo said. Yes, you are, Velnaris countered. You're the most complicated species I've ever encountered. You're violent but compassionate. Logical but emotional. You plan carefully but take reckless risks. You're terrifying and comforting at the same time. Fair enough, Jiwoo conceded. When you figure us out, let me know. We're still trying to understand ourselves. The next day, Velnaris boarded a transport ship heading to Keelan space. As the ship pulled away from the Indomitable, he watched the human destroyer grow smaller. It was still there, still protecting the damaged station, still ready to fight if needed. The journey home took 3 days. Velnaris spent that time preparing his report, but he also spent it thinking. About what he'd learned, about what he'd become. When he arrived at the Cheelan homeworld, he was immediately summoned to the Collective Council. The council chamber was a beautiful space, with walls that glowed in gentle colors and seats arranged in a circle. 30 council members waited for him, their antennae quivering with curiosity and concern. Welcome home, Velnaris, Council Leader Tirmal said. We've read the preliminary reports, but we want to hear from you directly. What happened at Harmony's Edge? Velnaris stood in the center of the circle and told them everything. He didn't leave out details. He described the Dreth betrayal, the boarding action, watching humans fight. He told them about carrying the reactor core, about the explosion, about the terror and the courage. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other, uncertain. These humans, one council member finally said, they're dangerous. Extremely dangerous, Velnaris agreed. They're violent, aggressive, they celebrate combat. They do, Velnaris confirmed. Then why are you recommending we form an alliance with them? Tirmal asked. Velnaris had known this question would come. He'd prepared his answer carefully, because their violence has purpose. They don't fight for conquest or glory. They fight to protect. And once they decide you're worth protecting, they will never abandon you. But can we trust them? Another council member asked. I trust them more than any species I've ever met, Velnaris said firmly, because I've seen what they do when they think no one is watching. When there's no reward or recognition, they still chose to protect us. They still chose to sacrifice. That's not strategy or manipulation. That's character. They're too different from us, someone objected. Our cultures don't match. They're different because they evolved differently, Velnaris explained. We evolved in safety. They evolved in constant danger. That made them what they are. But their difference is exactly why we need them. The galaxy isn't safe. The Dreth proved that, and when danger comes, I want humans standing beside me. The council debated for hours. Velnaris answered every question, addressed every concern. Finally, Tirmal called for a vote. All in favor of establishing a formal military alliance with humanity. Velnaris held his breath. One by one, the council members voiced their approval. Not all of them. 3 abstained, worried about the implications. But the majority agreed. The motion passes, Tirmal announced. Velnaris, you will return to Harmony's Edge as our permanent ambassador. Work with the humans. Help them understand us and help us understand them. 3 months later, Velnaris returned to the rebuilt Harmony's Edge. The station looked different now, reinforced with better weapons and shields. But the spirit was the same. Taemin met him at the docking port, smiling warmly. Welcome back, Ambassador. Thank you, Velnaris said. He wore the official robes of a Chilan ambassador now, but he felt more comfortable in them than he ever had before. Jiwoo was there too, in her security gear. Ready to get back to work? Yes, Velnaris said. But I have a question first. What's that? Teach me to fight, not to be a warrior. I'll never be that. But teach me to stand, to not freeze when danger comes. Jiwoo and Taemin exchanged surprised glances. Then Jiwoo grinned. Okay, it won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, Velnaris said. I learned that from humans. They walked together through the station. Velnaris noticed other things had changed too. There were more mixed species groups now. Chilan engineers working alongside hexoid technicians and human specialists. Different species eating together in the cafeteria, sharing stories and cultures.